Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Vecenie. Today, Jason Timpf is here on the show because Bryce Simon is out for the weekend. Jason and I are going to do our Week 7 takeaways. Man, we've already had 7 weeks of the NBA season. It feels pretty wild. We're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about team building in general. We're going to talk about, I think, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Orlando Magic. I have the Boston Celtics on the agenda for sure. So we're going to dive into a whole lot of really fun topics, but first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown. Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Jason, what's going on, buddy?
Dude, it is good to see you. I can't believe we're already 7 weeks into this either. Thanksgiving is always like the first like real tentpole break of the NBA season. And that first month was just such an insane like blitz from start to finish. And there's so much to get into, so many new teams to kind of figure out, so many new players to kind of figure out, and so much weird stuff. Teams that we thought would be good that are bad, teams that we thought would be bad that are good. Like it's been a super entertaining first 7 weeks. And I'm very, very excited to dive into some more teams with you today.
Yeah, I am too. You know, it's interesting. Like this is always like a big line of demarcation. Like last week is really typically the first week where teams will start like canvassing the league. Like the Kings kind of broke that this year, it feels like. But like this is typically the first week, last week going into this week, where teams will start to like canvass the league and be like, all right, we have a good feel for our team. We understand what we have. We understand maybe what we need too. So like what's available, what's out there, just trying to understand, you know, potential trade talks as we head into that December 15th date where most of the league comes available via trade. Unfortunately for the Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga does not. But the rest of the league mostly will be available for trades on December 15th. So I do wonder if, given some of the, you know, Clippers mess and the Kings and kind of everything that's going on across the league where, you know, as you mentioned, there are some teams that are bad that we expected would be good. There are some teams that are good that we expected would not be as good. Do we see some movement a little bit earlier than what we would think? And then on top of it, the NBA Cup is coming up here this week. We have knockout
good
games.
Teams in it.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Like I'm really, really excited to kind of dive in and talk through this, but we're doing the same structure as the typical Sunday show with Bryce, just with Jason. So I will give you the floor as the guest. You can go first. What is your first bullet point that you want to talk about?
Okay. So I know that this is actually hilarious coming from me because I'm the famous, this is the best possible matchup for the Lakers guy, but right before they got their butts kicked in the first round. But I find it to be very fascinating to me how much the Minnesota Timberwolves are riding under the radar again this year. And I'm wondering if we are all collectively, as basketball fans, dramatically underrating them again. And this is essentially the driving force behind this take. Once again, they're mediocre on defense for large chunks of games, for large chunks of the season. It kind of remind me a lot of the Philadelphia Eagles in that sense, where like, if you catch the Philadelphia Eagles on the right regular season night, they will look terrible. But ultimately, they're still one of the best teams in the league because they can physically maul you on both ends of the field, right? That's kind of how I see Minnesota. Still, if you look at their numbers, they're still really good on defense in fourth quarters. They're still really good on defense at the end of games. And really, to me, I still feel as though they can leverage that physicality on defense in a big spot when they need to. And what I keep coming back to is this team is like clearly better on offense than they were last year in some key ways. Yeah. Like Shea's been so good, and Luka's been so good, and Giannis was so good before he got hurt, and Jokic has been so good that Ant's kind of flying under the radar again, and he's having an incredible season. What I think has been kind of fascinating with Ant is there's been this focus on like, oh, is he going to add a mid-range jump shot like he has, like to try to compete with Shea? And the mid-range jump shot's been trashed to start this year. But what has been amazing is he has legitimately taken a massive leap as a rim finisher. his efficiency at the rim is better than it's ever been by an extremely wide margin because he's shooting so much better on layups. And the main thing that I'm seeing is back in the day, he didn't seem to have as much change of pace on his drives. And there's like a little bit of like a slow down, like, let me take a slow down step or a Euro step, or let me just hesitate with a high dribble for a second and wait for some of this to develop until an actual opening generates itself. And then I can hit that gap and finish quickly at the rim. And he's just been so much more efficient on layups and so much more relentless with his attacking that it's added like another element. Jaden McDaniels is having by far the best offensive season of his career. You know, Dante DiVincenzo is playing great. Nas Reed has been amazing. He was amazing again last night in the win against the Clippers. Julius Randle is Julius Randle. He's still a guy that's going to bully people one-on-one in the post and in high, like face-up ISOs. There's like another level of offensive firepower with this team. And we all just kind of have to believe that they'll be good defensively when they need to, which I do. And so what I'm wondering is like, is it because Oklahoma City's so good or because Houston's this new exciting thing or the Lakers randomly got off to such a good start or whatever it is, but it feels like people are off the Minnesota Timberwolves and they probably shouldn't be. Where are you at with Minnesota?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think that what happened with Minnesota to some extent is that they started the season like a little bit rough, right? They started the season 2-3, and I believe they were 4-4 at one point as well. So I think people like for the first like 8 to 10 games, I don't want to say they wrote them off, but I think that they, you know, it just wasn't a talking point compared to some of the other talking points league wide. I think a big reason for that, in my opinion, is that the Randall Reed lineups just like couldn't guard anybody. So when they went to that lineup, they just didn't really have a shot. It felt like against anybody to me. Now, here's the good thing about the Timberwolves. If you look at the Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle trio, they've played 308 minutes together, so the equivalent of, 8 games or so. What do you think their net rating is as a trio when those three guys are on the court?
No idea. What do you got?
Plus 17.4 per 100 possessions. So basically, when the Timberwolves' 3 best players are out on the court, they are mauling people. Not only in like the physical sense, but also in the sense of just being able to dominate games, both on the offensive and on the defensive end. The offense is scoring 128 points per 100 possessions when that trio is on the court. I think Randall has gone way under the radar this season. I think he has been awesome. Just the ability to be that secondary playmaker next to Ant. I think he's like figuring out the spacing. I remember we talked about that a lot last year with, early in the season, it felt like the spacing was off. And then toward the end of the year, they really started to kind of bring it together and figure it out. It feels even better this year than what I thought it was last year. Jaden McDaniels, you brought him up, massive piece of this. I would like to see him take even more threes on some level. I mean, he's hitting them at 48%. That won't hold, but I think there's scope for him to take 5 threes a game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why we wouldn't be taking a ton of threes per game if you're Jaden McDaniels. The key for me with them, and this is kind of what I kept coming back to when I thought, you're bringing this up, like I need to do like a bit of a deep dive into them, is kind of what happens when you take like, one of these guys off of the court, right? Do they have enough depth? Do they have enough like lineup differentiation right now to be able to like withstand the toughest moments in the playoffs? And, you can look at it when Gobert goes off the court and it's just Ant and Randall, they have a negative net rating. When Randall goes off the court and it's just Gobert and Ant, they have a negative 15.2 net rating. So, some of that is noisy. We're still somewhat early in the season, right? And that'll even itself out. But I do think a part of it is that this team does not have the depth, or at least let me rephrase. I think that Chris Finch might not trust the depth that they have yet, and the depth to this point, particularly at the guard positions, has not necessarily borne itself out as being good enough yet. Like Terrence Shannon Jr., for as much excitement as people had with him coming into the year, has not been amazing. The Rob Dillingham experience has been quite poor to this point. I've been pretty good with the Jalen Clark experience. Like that dude comes in and is just like absolutely on fire on defense and is not super useful on offense, but at least like plays his role reasonably well. It feels like the Mike Conley fall off like happened midway through last year and is continued. So I think they probably need one or two more guys. It could be internal growth that like Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham or somebody like that steps up, or it could have to be an outside acquisition that comes in. But I do think that they might be like one perimeter guy short right now, is kind of my take. I put them in the same, it's funny, like you brought up the Lakers to start this conversation. I think I kind of put them in the same bucket as the Lakers, where I'm like, I think they're probably a guy short right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what they look like in February.
Yeah, if you could combine Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon into like, it's interesting because Terrence isn't shooting the ball super well, but I actually kind of like him as an offensive player. There's like a natural feel that he has for drive and kick basketball. Like he slashes and he's got his head up and he reads that low man and he's looking for those kick out reads and
he plays fast.
Yeah. Jalen Clark, it's ironic. He's been shooting better than Shannon during this 5-game win streak, but I hate his feel for the game relative to a guy like Terrence Shannon in terms of like just knowing how to be a threat on offense. And if you could combine Terrence and Jalen with like a little bit more refined shot making, that's the kind of player they have to hunt. But like that's literally what Nickeil Alexander-Walker was. And ultimately, you've got to try to find that at a discount because they weren't willing to pay what it was going to cost, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I think one of the things too, I agree with you that
let me pause real quick on that. Do you think it's a wing or do you think it's a point guard that they should go get?
I think it would be like a off guard, point guard, like a guy that can run a little bit of action, that can make reads while pressuring the rim, ideally.
Yeah.
I kind of like their forward rotation as currently constructed. I think one of the things you mentioned having to do with lineup resilience as they go into their bench. I think that's where, again, just like there's a little bit of noise with this team not being really interested in guarding much over the course of the first 3 quarters of games. It's so funny because I'm seeing this a little bit with Cleveland too. There's this thing that happens when you put together kind of like a new construct where the team comes together and they just kick everyone's butt in the first season because there's like this love and appreciation for the process over the course of the 82. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, there's another 82. And then there's another 82. And you can see, you can tell Cleveland struggling a little bit with that right now. It felt like Minnesota started to deal with that last year. And that has come over a little bit, that little bit of lethargic lack of intensity, possession to possession over the beginning portions of these regular season games. But to me, one of the big reasons why I can't ever get off of Minnesota is there is a level of like ratchet up. We've got a bunch of MFers over here that like want to physically punk you and that can also score the basketball. That makes me feel like as I look at these other Western Conference teams, and like I know we're not going to talk Lakers today or Nuggets or Rockets, but all 3 of them have like some pretty significant flaws of their own. And it just is, I just came into this when you said, what are your 3 big takeaways? I've just been watching Minnesota recently, and all I can think is like, is this going to be one of those deals where they're in the Western Conference Finals again? And we're like, oh, we didn't talk enough about Minnesota this year.
Yeah, I've been wondering that a little bit as well. I think that there is like a pretty distinct possibility of that, if only because I agree with you. Like the Ant Leap has actually gone pretty underrated. I had him 5th in MVP when we did like quarter mark awards on Friday, Friday, I guess it was. And I felt like kind of weird about it at first. And then I like went back and watched like a bunch of Ant tape and I was like, oh no, this guy's like taking a huge leap as a scorer again. Yeah. Like the ability to efficiently get to the rim has been massive in terms of his ability to like navigate those tight areas. Exactly like you said. The passing still is what it is, right? Like I would love to see him make better decisions on some of those drives where he doesn't find those creases. But now that he is slowing down and still has that, incredible elite athleticism, it's actually like to me kind of minimizing I don't want to say the importance of the passing, because it is going to be important, because teams will just like kind of shut him down in the playoffs, I think, or at least attempt to on some level and mitigate what, his leap has been. But I do think that being able to consistently work your way and weave your way to the rim is one way to mitigate a passing concern.
Mhm.
If you can just always weave your way and find your way into a good shot at the basket, like, it's not like Shea is like the best passer in the world. I do think Shea is like a slightly better decision maker than what Ant is. I would maybe say more than slightly, honestly, but like, it's not like he's out here making these incredibly advanced passes all the time. You know what I mean? It's just that he's so good at weaving his way to the rim that he never turns the ball over, which is the main categorical difference, I feel like, between those two a lot of the time. And on top of it, like, he just is great at finding those little nooks and like extending to finish. And, Ant, I think, is getting there, but he's, it's been a slower process for him to get there.
Yeah, last point I'll make on that specific concept. My buddy Carson Breber at Nerd Stash, he's been hitting on this concept lately, and it's actually something that I think is very interesting. We get very keyed in as basketball fans on like ultra high level playmaking. Like, there are reads that a Luka or a Jokic is going to make, a LeBron's going to make, that there are certain players in the league that will never make those reads.
It's aesthetically pleasing as well.
Yeah, and it's aesthetically pleasing. But there's a certain amount with Shea where it's like, I'm just so good that the defense leans to me so aggressively that I just have these easy reads to make.
Yeah,
I've seen this with Tyrese Maxey this year too. It's one of those things where you look at a guy like Ant, and it's to your point. If he just gets so unbelievably good with the simple dynamic of, I'm going past you for layups, or I'm hitting a easy little step back three over the top of you, that the defense starts to react so aggressively that he can get the defense in rotation with simple swing. Like, a lot of the stuff with Shea is like pretty simple reads that he just makes because dudes are open, because the defense is so loaded up on him.
Well, the way that you do that is that you make teams pass, or you make teams help one pass away.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what you have to do. If you can make teams help one pass away, Tyrese Maxey, it's because of his speed. If you don't help one pass away, he's gone. Right. With Ant, he's so strong downhill that if you don't bump him early, it's over, right? With Shea, he's so good at like finding those little creases and crevices around the rim that if you don't help early, it's kind of over. It's forcing that help one pass away that makes for like easy offense. And one of the teams we're going to talk about later is Boston. I think Boston is really good at playing so fast that they make you think that you need to help one pass away a lot of the time. And it creates kind of real open opportunities that way as well. So I love the way that they play. I love the way that these teams play. I am, I'm just such a fan of what Minnesota has done. And, I think that, they continue to have like a baseline high level defense because of Gobert. When Gobert leaves the court, it becomes a problem, but, I think they're starting to find answers to that a little bit more consistently than what it was early in the year.
I think they deserve a little victory lap for the Cat trade too, because I, like many others, was like, this is weird, and it's just Dante's been such a great fit, and Julius has actually been like a legitimately better second side option than Cat ever was, and I think they're better as currently constructed.
I would agree. Before we move on and get to my first takeaway, we're going to shout out the folks over at Mizzen Main. You know the saying, look good, feel good. The problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They might look sharp, but they're stiff, they're hot, they're high maintenance, which makes it hard to feel comfortable. That's why Mizzen Main is just the best, and I'm such a fan of what their product is. They make classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel great. I was wearing Mizzen Main before they started advertising on the show. They make the best clothes in terms of performance fabric dress shirts. You can easily wear them to go on the golf course. That tends to be where I would wear them. And since then, they've perfected it with modern fabrics. Mizzen Main's shirts and pants look refined, yet they're stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable. No ironing or dry cleaning. It's a timeless style you can invest in once and enjoy for years. That's why thousands of guys swear by Mizzen Main when they want to look great without the hassle. Right now, Mizzen Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com. Promo code GAME20. That's MIZZEN. Spell and Main, MAIN. Promo code GAME20 for 20% off. Mizzenandmain.com. Promo code GAME20. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. Okay, so this is like, I don't know. This might be like a hot take coming from me, the guy that covers the NBA draft, right? But I'm kind of over these teams that are tanking for 3 years, like running 3 or 4 years running, and not just like getting any better or not taking shots. You know what I mean? Like not just like the Cam Whitmore chances where you're like, oh, I'll take a second round flyer on this guy that, you know, Houston had problems with, but he has real talent and upside. Like that's a bet I probably would have made if I was Washington. But I just so strongly believe now, and this year is kind of a great example of it, that these teams that decide to tank for 3 years are just kind of wasting everybody's time on some level. And the reason for that is that there are just multiple other avenues that you can use to go get better. You don't have to tank to the draft. You can make bets on guys that you think are going to take the leap and become all-stars. And you can look at Toronto this year, right? Like Toronto had the year where they tanked with Scotty Barnes. I'm not sitting here saying that you can't tank 1 or 2 years, right? Like if you want to like bottom out for a year or two, that's totally fine. I get it. But then you look at what they've done around him. Like, okay, we had to transition our roster. It would have been so easy for Toronto to just go into the tank around Scotty Barnes and try to like go get Darren Peterson or go get, you know, whoever they wanted in 2024, right? No, they tried to contend. They tried to compete. So they, instead of trading OG Anunoby for multiple, you know, first round picks, they go and they get Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. You know, they go and they get Jakob Poeltl. They go and get Brandon Ingram, right? And now look at where Toronto is. They're sitting here at 15-9, probably 15-10 after the Celtics game ends, although they are like on a little bit of a comeback trail as we talk. And they look like a real team again. You can look at the way Indiana has built its roster. They made an informed bet on somebody like Tyrese Halliburton thinking, no, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy that we can build around. And he is an undervalued asset league-wide. Essentially what I think, and by the way, they've done it with Pascal Siakam. They've done it with Obi Toppin. They've done it with, you know, basically the entire roster on their team, except for like Mathurin and Nembhard and I guess Jarris Walker. But by and large, like they went out and acquired their guys via trade. Aaron Nesmith, another example of this, right? Malcolm Brogdon was coming to the end of his time in Indiana. We really buy into Aaron Nesmith and what he was able to do. I think that teams need to be better, frankly. It just kind of stacking up and being like, you know what? We believe in Denny Avdia. If we're the Portland, like imagine where Portland would be right now if they didn't make that move on Denny.
He's so good.
Like they'd be a catastrophe though without him. And now they're like pretty competent. And they make the Drew Holiday deal. That wasn't like for a ton of value or anything. Like that was for Simons, who was probably going to get traded again, right? Like I think there is such the reason that this is valuable, I think, are two reasons more than anything. A, I think there is such organizational value in not tanking and like not getting that culture of losing around the players that you want to build with, right? I think that there is just something to that. And B, like from a fan base perspective, let's go all in on the fan. Like let's go all in and be not go all in, but like let's be responsible and make moves that at least allow our fans to have like some sort of a competitive team out there. I just think that these teams that hoard these picks without making an informed bet on, like, if you believe in Peyton Pritchard right now, like every time Peyton Pritchard has gotten a chance to like level up, right? I think that he's kind of shown that he can handle it. If you really believe in that, like go pay Boston like a couple of first round picks and see if they'll take it. You know what I mean? If he ends up being the guy that you think he is, and this is an example, I'm not sitting here saying that, it has to be Peyton Pritchard or anything. But if you are right on that bet, like Portland was with Denny Avdia, the 2 first-round picks that people laugh at whenever you send it, it's going to look stupid. It's going to you're going to come out looking way ahead because you were right in terms of making the informed bet. Trading Domantas Sabonis, an all-star at the time for Indiana, for Tyrese Halliburton. Yes, that was a deal that was seen at the time as quite, advantageous for the Pacers. It was seen at the time as also a win for the Kings, but very clearly is going to come out in the historical record books as being way better for the Indiana Pacers. And I'm not saying that these deals don't sometimes work. Sometimes they end up being wrong and you make the wrong informed bet, but have some confidence in your evaluation abilities and make these informed pro personnel bets. Continue, part of the reason that I say this is that Indiana, for instance, has renowned one of the best pro personnel scouting sides in the NBA, right? They've really invested in that side and have done a really good job of evaluating the league. I think that there is real value right now. I think that might be the marginal inefficiency in the league to me, is investing in pro personnel and being able to target the marginal inefficiencies, the guys where their teams maybe don't love them in the way that they should, or you believe that this guy has capacity for more, and then betting on that and trying to get the deal done in some way. And the argument that I will get from some teams back that hear this, I guarantee I will get text messages about this, is trades are just so hard to do. They're so hard to do. Teams have to agree to a value and everything like that. I'm not saying that they aren't hard to do. But if you really believe in somebody, I think that teams often mistake the idea of getting a value on a trade and winning the trade, as opposed to winning the team building process of trying to build a contender, I guess is my point. And anything there, does anything there kind of flew into you in some way, Jason?
I love this take from you. I think in general, I hate the phrase or the word rebuild, because it's if let's say you're Oklahoma City and, at some point, for one reason or another, they have to break up their core. Are they going to rebuild Oklahoma City Thunder basketball, or are they just going to find new players to come in and play Oklahoma City Thunder basketball, fitting under that same identity? And to your point, it's not just trades, it's everything down the line, right? It's a basketball culture piece that you want to establish and continue from season to season. It's not just hunting the next Tyrese Halliburton, it's the undrafted guys that you can find. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Pat Spencer later today. Colin Gillespie for the Phoenix Suns,
yes.
Ryan Rollins for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Suns are actually a perfect example of what you're talking about, where they looked at Mark Williams, a guy who I scouted when the Lakers traded for him. And by the way, don't get me started on the Lakers. I heard from Pete Zayas that they don't even have a pro personnel department. So there's that. But anyway, when the Lakers made the trade for Mark Williams, I did a scout on him, and I'm like, oh, this guy's a bad defender. And the main thing that I was noticing with him is
he was a terrible defender in Charlotte.
Yeah, he was floating around too much on the back line, and he didn't understand that help versus stay home to rebound, when to leave your feet for a shot block versus when to stay down on the ground. All these little basic dynamics of rim protection that he was just bad at. And Phoenix was first of all, we're turning Kevin Durant into a really good player in Dillon Brooks. Okay, so there's that. Just a really good Jalen Green. He's either gonna be good for them or he's gonna be bad for them. But they got Dillon Brooks back in the deal, and they're we have 2 awesome perimeter defenders. We think that these dudes can get physical up into the basketball, and that they'll be able to funnel into Mark. And we think we can turn Mark Williams into a good rim protector, and they have. And I understand it's only been a quarter of the season, and no one's about to go give Mark Williams an all defense selection. But the point is that to your point, they identified a player in Charlotte that had a weakness that they viewed as a potential strength. And their defense has been dramatically better this year with Mark Williams on the floor versus him being off. And you find a guy like Colin Gillespie. You have a cultural basketball approach from the top down in terms of the types of players that you're hunting for that fit your system, hunting down every opportunity to bring in a talent that could help you in one way or another, it's just in the aggregate going to manifest in you performing better as a basketball team season to season. And the whole thing too is like, to your point about the draft, there are guys that are franchise altering talents outside of the top of the lottery. So you can rebuild, make sound decisions about what you're willing to spend a first round draft pick on and what you're not, so that you have these picks available. You can be mediocre for a year or two, and in that time, just do a good job scouting the middle of the first round of the draft and get additional talent there. Hunt down a lottery pick that failed elsewhere. Hunt down a two-way guy that didn't do well at one destination, but that does well for you. To your point, there is a process to running a basketball team from the top down that you should never be trying to fundamentally rebuild from the ground up. It should always be like, okay, yeah, we lost our star for one reason or another. We're going to continue to just build all these other parts of our organization until the right opportunity comes to jump on a star. Or we have our star, we're going to manage the middle portion of our roster. It bothers me when I see Oklahoma City go kick the crap at everybody with the end of their bench every fourth quarter. And I'm like, you want to tell me that it's because it's Chet and it's Shea? You want to tell me it's because they have all this top end talent? There is a basketball culture there. Brandon Carlson's going in there and playing harder than all your dudes. There is a top down, they're grabbing every single margin throughout every level of the organization. And to your point, the top of the draft, a top 2 or 3 pick, is only one of those areas with which you can boost your franchise. And so it blows my mind that there are teams that don't hunt in every single facet of the player pool like that.
Well, and like, look, I'm going to bring up Utah here, right? Like, just as an example, like I think that I actually really like that front office. Like, I know people within that front office. I think that they are really, really smart, and I'm not in any way saying that I think that they should be removed or anything. Like, I think that they are a good front office within the league, actually, the Utah Jazz. But like, you're kind of sitting there hoarding picks. And the thing that ends up happening with these teams is that I think there is like a real time value of like the draft, like the players that you draft, right? Because the first 2 years that you have a guy, unless like it's a breakout dude that is just like freaking awesome from the jump, like Khan is in Charlotte, right? The reason the draft picks are so valuable is because that when you do hit one, they are like the most valuable currency in the league to have a really great young player on a rookie scale deal. So I'm not saying to like not go to the draft and not like continue to have draft picks. Look at Oklahoma City. They nailed Jalen Williams, and like that is completely changed the trajectory of their organization, on top of nailing Shea in the Paul George deal and, drafting Chet Holmgren at number 2, right? Like, the Jalen Williams one is the thing that supercharged it, in my opinion, for them, even though they're 22-1 and he's played 4 games this year, which is hysterical. But like, I think that for most organizations, they don't value the time that it's going to take to get young players up to like the standard of being able to like contribute to winning basketball. Like, I love Cedric Howard in Memphis. I think Cedric Howard's going to be like this incredibly awesome player, right? Like, I think he's absolutely going to be a starter. I think he's going to be fantastic. Cedric Howard right now, is averaging 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and has a true shooting percentage that is now 2% below league average, right? And he's like a solid rotation guy. Like, you can have Cedric Howard in a rotation and he's not going to hurt you right now. I don't know that he's like a true difference maker. For a rookie, he's a difference maker, but like league wide, Cedric Howard is not one of the, I would say he's not one of the 150 best players in the league. You know what I mean? And that's okay. He's probably going to be a top 60 player in the league at some point, I think. But the time it takes to get there, that's time you don't get back as an organization. I think you have to have more of a blend of vets and, young guys. Whereas like a team like Utah, a team like Washington, they have a couple vets and then they just have like all these young dudes on the roster. And I feel like Utah is a prime example of this because they have all of the picks in the world that they are like hoarding long term, from the Donovan Mitchell deal, the Rudy Gobert deal, everything that they've done like machinations wise to accumulate even more picks. I think that there's just like real pro personnel bets to like make out on the market. And like, if you really believe like in Atlanta that like Mo Gay is a guy that is like an up and coming star, go like over, like, I don't like, look, some of these guys, like the team will just automatically say no. Right. And it is what it is. And that's what executives mean when they say that these things are just hard to do. But like, if Atlanta's willing to talk about Mo Gay and you think Mo Gay is going to be like a monster long term, go see what it would cost to pry him out. And if you like think he's going to be a star or something, go do it. If you think that like Pat Spencer is going to be a star or something, I don't think Pat Spencer is going to be a star, but like you think he's a star, like go be like, hell yeah, we're going to give you like a real asset for Pat Spencer, right? I just think that teams overvalue the idea, over-index on the idea of winning the deal on the day of the deal, and like over-index on the idea of getting a value and winning the trade, as opposed to like the long-term ideal of building like a high-level organization and high-level like team basketball concept.
Well, and to your point, the like a basketball player's value is unique to the situation that they're in, and so if you think they're going to be more valuable in your system, then you may have to pay more than what the other team values them to be. Ultimately,
And what was the deal that everyone trashed this summer for Brooklyn? It was Michael Porter Jr., right?
I put that on my list, dude. Like, I loved that trade because, like, as I look back on it now,
for Denver.
Yeah. Well, I loved it for Denver, but like I love it for Brooklyn because like they're going to end up turning Cam Johnson into like 2 first-round picks and a second or something like that. Because Michael Porter Jr. is a real player that's going to help somebody this year, and they just rehabbed his value. To your point, it's like if you find a team that's sick of a guy for one reason or another, and you think you can come rehab his value, like that's another like that's another way to do it. Like I mean, it's just another margin. Finding value where other teams don't. Find the guy, like to your point about trades and how hard the trades are to make. Go for the guy, like go to every player in the league that is currently not valuable for one reason or another and see if you see value there. Yeah. And see if that's a guy that could help you for some reason. You know what I mean?
Totally. Like the Miami Heat are another great example of this. Like they're sitting here at 14-10, and look, they don't have a star on their, like they don't have like a true star. Like shout out Tyler Hero and Bam. Like Bam is probably the closest thing to a star, but like, like it's not like they have one of the 10 best players in the league on the roster, right? And I love Bam, but like probably not quite there. They turned like Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson into Norman Powell this summer, right? Just really, really sharp. They went out and they got Davion Mitchell in a deal, knowing that he would be perfect within their culture, right? They go out and they get Simone Fontecchio, who has been like pretty useful for them because he was just a cast off for Detroit because that deal ended up not working out, right? Like there are just so many ways that you can win on the margins in the NBA just by being really good at evaluating, I think. And we're going to talk about one later with like both. I think that both of my topics later feed into this because Boston did this incredibly well this summer. And then we're going to talk about Pat Spencer later. And like Pat Spencer is the prime example of this. Like the number of teams that I talked to this summer where I said, like, I think Pat Spencer, you should give him like a 1-year guaranteed deal. Like not just a 2-way, like a real roster contract. And they were like, yeah, but like, can he actually do it? It was the same as Colin Gillespie 2 years ago. Like the two guys that I feel like I've brought up on this show so many times are Colin Gillespie. When he was averaging a triple-double in Denver, I was like, this guy's very clearly like a roster player. Like go give him a shot somewhere. And Pat Spencer. Like every time that we saw Pat Spencer in the playoffs last year, that dude was up to the task. Like that dude had no issues going to play in a high leverage moment. Go bet on guys that you believe in at the end of the day. It's why I talked about Cam Spencer pre-draft. Like go bet on these hyper competitive, like high level dudes at the end of the day. And like see what happens. And some of them you're going to get wrong 100%. I'm not sitting here saying otherwise, but don't just sit around and do nothing. I think I'm over the teams that just sit around and don't do anything and then just like pray that the lottery balls fall in their favor on draft night.
And if you're doing it through the lottery only, it will be 4 years. It's just that, because to your point, most of them aren't good for the first couple years anyway.
100%. Okay.
You should always be making value plays and accumulating talent that fits your culture. And as long as you have that culture established from the top down organizationally, the players will fit in. And I think that sort of thing tends to manifest in like random things, like how good the back end of your roster is. Like that, where you can tell it's like, oh, this team like knows what players fit their culture, and they seem to just keep finding those guys every year. It's like Will Richard with the Warriors this year. How do they keep finding dudes like that every single year? But it's because they know exactly what they're looking for their system, and they scour the player pool every offseason looking for dudes that are value opportunities that fit that specific culture.
I will say the Warriors front office has not been a paragon of draft value up until the Will Richard pick, but
they do find that to the roster guys though. I'm more talking about like, second round picks, undrafted two-way deal, like that kind of stuff. Like Guy Santos has been huge for them as of late again too, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a good point. Okay. Jason, you're up with takeaway number 2.
Okay. I'm going to skip to one that's a little bit different. I have looked around at all these potential Giannis trades, and there's one to me that like makes way more sense than all the others for a variety of reasons, and that's Orlando. And so I want to give you my pitch for why I think Orlando should trade Paolo Banchero for Giannis, and then I want you to tell me if I'm insane. Okay.
So I do just want to tell the people before you get into this, I have figured out a way to do this, like on the trade machine. Because he's like poison pilled right now. So it's very, very difficult in theory to do this. So before Jason talks, just know that like this is possible.
Well, there's a version 2 where Giannis doesn't get traded to the summer too. Like
also accurate.
Yeah. And at that point it becomes a lot easier. But so here's where I'm at with Orlando. When I look around at these other teams, Atlanta was one of my favorite options early in the season, but I literally think Jalen Johnson has gotten so good that he's officially like untradeable. And if I'm Milwaukee, I want nothing to do with like a Zachary Rasachet as like a foundational piece compared to some of the other options that are out there. Like if I can get a deal that's going to include an Austin Reeves out of the Lakers, or like a Steph Castle out of the Spurs, or like some blue chip talent from some of these other teams, why do I want Zach Rasachet and Kristaps Porzingis and a bunch of draft picks, right? So like Atlanta seems off. Why do I want Karl Anthony Towns? That doesn't make sense with the Knicks. I look at San Antonio. There's actually kind of like San Antonio, I think makes a lot more sense. But the thing with San Antonio is like, does Giannis want to go be a number 2? Do the Spurs want to cash in one of those young guards that they really like? There's some question marks there. I don't think Oklahoma City is going to do it because Oklahoma City is already a massive favorite. Why would you take a risk on an older veteran star that if he gets hurt, all of a sudden you're not a championship favorite? And like they just straight up don't need to take the risk on a guy like Giannis. Right. The Lakers are just kind of unrealistic for a variety of reasons. They don't have the draft compensation. Like maybe this summer 2 picks plus Austin, but I just look at all the situations as having pretty substantial buts. You know what I mean? Yeah. When I look at Orlando, they've kind of started to play some of the prettiest offense I've seen them play in the last few years, just randomly, just by like almost like a collective goal to just move the ball more on their drives. And the number of passes they're throwing per game, their assist percentage has skyrocketed.
Yeah, like I've been talking a lot on this show about their intentionality on offense. Like they are so much more intentional about running actions, running sets, figuring out ways to actually get offensive flow. I completely agree with you on this.
Yeah, and getting guys into like the payoff spot, where it's like when they inevitably guard this action like this, let's have somebody there who can actually make the shot, like this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. There's just so much that I like about what Orlando's doing. I do not want to sit here and first take it and be like, Paolo left and they took off. They started playing better before Paolo got hurt too. So like there's some stuff there where it's not all Paolo's fault that they are the way that they are. I am still generally high on Paolo. I think I'm with you where I'm lower on him than a lot of people were,
I'm actually not. Like, I think he's really good. And I think it's like I think it's more down to the fact that early in the year they tried to play that like super up tempo style, and it just like wasn't as effective for them defensively. Like, they needed to play a little bit slower to run more half court defensive sets and continue to be able to weaponize Jalen Suggs and some of their other defenders in that way. And then also like their intentionality on offense. Like, nobody says you can't be intentional and run more actions when Paulo is in there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, Paulo's not like a bad dude. Like, he's somebody that isn't going to be like, no, like, screw you guys. Like, I want to run everything like through me. Like, that's just not the way he operates. Like, he didn't operate like that at Duke. And I'd be pretty stunned if that was the case.
The point I'm making with Paolo is like, I think the general consensus opinion on him is a little lower than it was when he was first drafted, because there's been a little bit of tunnel vision. There's been a little bit of like a lot of these 15 footers that he's missing, a lot of like just iffy process stuff with him. But I still view him as like a blue chip star prospect trade piece. Okay. Like the kind of guy that like, if you were Milwaukee and you were like, we lost Giannis, but we got Paolo, I think that'd be like a legitimate thing to pitch to the fan base, especially if it came attached to some draft compensation. Okay. Now with Orlando, there's kind of like this, the East is wide open and we're already one of the best defense and rebounding teams in the NBA. Giannis is a force multiplier in those areas. He's a natural two-man game partner with a guy like Desmond Bane. He inevitably would find a way to be successful with them offensively to a certain extent, maybe not to the extent that he is in Milwaukee when he spread it with all the shooting. But like ultimately what I look at it as is like a Orlando team that's already pretty close, but where there's like a development trajectory with Paolo where I'm not sure where it's going and I'm not sure if it really fits into what they're trying to do. So you turn Paolo into essentially you becoming the only bona fide top tier contender in the Eastern Conference with like a 2 or 3 year window where you could feasibly win the conference every year and have several punches at the championship. You also present a real physical conundrum to a team like Oklahoma City with that Wendell Carter Jr. Giannis front line and with your guards that can really defend. There's a version of this where I look at it as like kind of like cashing in on Paolo while he's still a question mark when he's not my favorite young star prospect. Like, I don't see Paolo being a guy who's one of the top tier superstars in the league. I think he's more destined to be kind of in that 8 to 15 range for most of his career when he enters his prime. He's just not my favorite prospect. I don't particularly like his form on his jump shot. I don't particularly like his feel for the game. He's not a natural like defensive focus guy, possession to possession, although he's got great tools. I just look at him as like a guy that Orlando could basically capitalize on to have a 2 or 3 year title window right here.
So when you first presented this, I thought it was a little bit crazy. And the more I've thought about it, the more I kind of like it, actually. Now, the issue here is that like if it's this season, Orlando like tends not to make big moves in season, frankly, a lot of the time. It's just kind of been their MO under Jeff Weltman. Like, they just don't make a ton of like in-season deals or anything. If it got to the off-season, it becomes drastically easier to figure out something like this. One issue that they have here is that they don't have a ton of picks because of the Bane deal, right? Like, they have moved a lot of their picks, and that's just the reality of the situation. But I will say this. I am like a Paulo believer on some level, right? Like, I do think he will probably be like a top 10-ish player in the league at some point because he is so good at creating advantages. He is such a mismatch threat. And we've seen it in the playoffs. Like, he has been incredibly hard to deal with in the playoffs. Like, he's averaging 28 points per game in his 12 playoff games, 8.5 rebounds, 4.1 assists. He's turned the ball over a decent amount, but like, it is hard to deal with him in the toughest moments of like big, situations like the playoffs, toughest moments, high leverage situations. Like, he is able to get shots in a real way. Now, to me, the shooting is the swing skill. Like, if you can figure out a way to get his shooting to a place where he is not a, middle of the pack mid-range shooter and poor 3-point shooter, then it becomes, oh no, this is like significant upside. But I don't know. Like that was always my worry coming into the draft, was that like I didn't really love the jumper and thought it was going to take quite a few years if he ever got there as a shooter. That was why I ended up with him.
The form is weird. He crossfires. It's really long. He loses energy on his way up. It's kind of funky.
Yeah, and I was wrong having Paulo third. I should have had him either first or second. I had Chet at 1, and Chet's awesome, and I'm a huge fan. But like, I think Paulo has significant upside still. So if I was Milwaukee, I might be interested in this actually. Would you rather have Jalen Johnson or Paulo long term?
Man, that's a tough one. Because that's the thing. I like Jalen doesn't have the natural scoring wiggle like against a real good set defense. Like when the passing reads aren't there and the rim is shut off. That's where Paolo, like you may not love Paolo's ability to make the shot, but to your point, he's going to get to a shot. Jalen to me is incredible at everything outside of that. But I just don't like his natural scoring wiggle, like in terms of like tougher situations.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not like Jalen's like 1 year older than Paulo, basically. Like I think they're both 23 as of right now, but Paulo just turned 23. Jalen turns 23, I think, here in like a couple weeks or so. So, you could maybe make that case that like there's the year gap there, but I don't know. The transition stuff with Jalen is incredible. The like passing vision is better with Jalen than it is with Paulo, but I do agree with you. Like the half court wiggle, the ability to get into his shot is just kind of different with Paulo. And I kind of think that Paulo would be better as a number 1 if it all hits. Jalen might be like the more impactful number 2, depending on situation. Like it is like a little bit dependent on situation to me. The big thing with Jalen though, and why Jalen's a better trade asset than Paulo, is the money. Like Paulo got the full max, whereas Jalen is going to get 30 million for the next 5 years, 4 on top of this one. So like it's a huge cap hit difference that allows you serious flexibility. So like if Atlanta was willing to include Jalen Johnson, which like I don't know if I would, Giannis.
I don't know if I would. Giannis to me is like, this is another part of this conversation. Giannis is a little bit of a risky go here. He's missed multiple playoff games over multiple years. He's been a guy who's starting to break down more and more often in the regular season. Like it almost to me is a like an all in, like we're going to give this a 2 or 3 year go, but this is probably only 2 or 3 years and then we're done kind of move, which I think does make a guy like Jalen Johnson all of a sudden, like, can you imagine Hawks fans watching Jalen Johnson drop 30-point triple doubles for the Bucks 3 years from now? That'd be devastating for them.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Paulo's finished top 4 in MVP 7 straight years, which is like completely crazy. Like Giannis is unbelievable at basketball and remains unbelievable at basketball. You do just wonder, like he has played, 17 of their 23 games so far this year. 25 games so far this year. He's going to miss the next 3 weeks or so, it feels like. So he's not even going to be eligible for awards, it feels like, already this year. 67 games last year, 73 the year before, then a run of 63, 67, 61, 63 in the previous few years. So like when he's out there, he's incredible. You do wonder if the body is going to, go a little bit, but it's still worth like an immense trade package. Like because when he's out there, he is like a genuine guy that will win you a title, as he's proven. I kind of like this idea for.
Can I layer one other kind of piece to this discussion? It'll be quick. I don't love the Paolo Franz fit between the two of them. It's that natural, like any 2-man game with them is pointless because teams are just going to switch it, and neither of them are good spot up players. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. I'm just saying it's not like the most natural cohesive fit. And secondly, let's say you make the move for Giannis and you don't win the title, or maybe you do, who cares? But obviously 2 or 3 years from now, Giannis enters a different phase of his career, mid-30s. He falls apart physically in Orlando, is then dealing with dead money or have to trade
or
him.
you don't resign him.
Or you don't resign him.
A year and a half. Yeah.
I like Orlando's current situation even without Bane. Like Franz, you and I have always been super high on. Anthony Black, I think, is awesome. Like I know it's still not quite there with that last little bit of polish as an on-ball player, but I think I like some stuff with him where I think he's gonna get there, and I think he's an awesome defender. I would rather have him than Jalen Suggs long term if I was Orlando. Like there's enough going on there. Tristan Da Silva has shown a lot this year as a 3-and-D guy. Wendell Carter Jr. is finally taking the leap as like a real stretch big that you have to account for. They've got enough good going on there that I think they could lose Paolo, have a window with Giannis, and then still have a bright future post Giannis, especially within the scale of what we just talked about earlier, if they continued to find pieces on the margins.
Okay. So in the deal that I constructed, which I'll just put on the screen now, as I flip the background and try to see if anybody can see this on the screen. I'm realizing. Okay. So the idea here is that the Bucks get Paulo, Anthony Black, Batadze, Tyus Jones. That's just to make the money work because of the complicated nature of Paulo's poison pill aspect of his contract, where the money going out is, I believe, like 40 million or so. And then the money coming in, or like the amount that Orlando has, coming in is 10 million or 12 million, whatever he's making right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece of it is very complicated to construct. So you basically have to be able to throw in like a bunch of money elsewhere to make this work. So though I like the idea of Anthony Black being the extra sweetener because they don't really have picks outside of one that they can use in a deal right now. The Magic get Giannis, and you have to find a way to slot money somewhere else to a third team, basically. The only way this works if you're going to do it in season. I sent Jonathan Isaac to the Nets, with the Nets getting like a first round pick from Orlando for the hassle of taking on Jonathan Isaac's 15 million this year. And then he has a little bit more guaranteed into the future. It's not all guaranteed, I don't believe, but it's like there are some guarantees there going forward. That was kind of this is really the only like structure I could find that works for this deal. I
view it as an off-season deal, but like I like fundamentally the Paolo for Giannis swap. I don't like giving up Tyus Jones and Anthony Black in the deal.
I mean, I have no problem. Like Tyus Jones has been terrible for them, so like I have no problem giving up Tyus Jones in the deal. It's more the AB piece of it that is complicated for me.
It's fair. Like there's a chance he doesn't get traded this season anyway.
I think so too, for what it's worth. Like I have to do trade deadline big board in a week or so, and like I'm probably not going to have Giannis on the original board that I publish because like I don't think Milwaukee is trying to move him right now. Like I think that their preference is to not move him at this point. So I don't know, man. Like I look at this and I think that it's complicated. It's difficult to do in season if it's Orlando. I don't mind the idea of using the Paulo asset to go all in on Giannis. And if I'm Orlando or if I'm Milwaukee, like you rather have Paulo than Steph Castle, right? Is your main asset.
I think so. Yeah.
I would rather have Paulo than the 2026 Pelicans pick because you're guaranteed to get him, whereas you only have a 54% chance to get one of the top three in like at the best case scenario where the Pelicans are like dreadfully bad. And then, maybe you guys are in the lottery or whatever. Like you have like at most like a 50% chance to get one of AJ DeBanza, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer. So I think I'd rather just take the bird in hand with Paulo at the end of the day. Jalen Johnson's an interesting conversation. I think I would rather have Jalen if they were willing to pop Jalen in. Just trying to think around the league. Like Austin Reeves is expiring this year. I don't think he can do it.
And trades for Giannis at this point.
Yeah, so like I think that Atlanta could construct a deal that's like Trae Young, Risa Shea, and the 2026 first.
But if I'm Milwaukee, I don't want that.
I think I might. I would. That's hard. Which of those deals would I prefer? I'm wrong.
The Atlanta one is the one that if they do that pick, is it the Pelicans pick or isn't it the Bucks' own pick that they get back? I'm trying to remember.
So it's the best of the Pelicans or Bucks pick.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the Pelicans are 3-18 or whatever. The Bucks would presumably be not very good at that point. Although with Trae coming back, you might be okay. I think like you might be able to win some games here and there. Maybe you turn around and move Trae to another spot as well. Like that could be easy if you wanted to, and get more and more pick value, get more whatever value you want to get. You could turn around and move Kristaps somewhere too, because Kristaps would have to be in the deal for the money, I believe, because you'd have to do like Kristaps, Trae, Risa Shea for like Giannis and Kuzma going back, I think would be the idea. And then you get the 2026 pick. Like, I don't know. That's a deal that like kind of makes sense to me for everybody. I think that's
Giannis want to go to Atlanta to play for a team with a bunch of other athletic forwards that aren't great shooters. Like that's the other like. I mean, obviously, Okongwu's shooting the ball better. Mo Gay can shoot it a little bit. They've got other things that are working for them. But I feel like Giannis has to also be happy with where he's going. And if I'm Giannis, I like a San Antonio or an Orlando better than Atlanta.
So I agree with that. My only take on that, though, is that with 2 runs left, you get 2 playoff runs with Giannis, right? I think he might be too good to have that sway. Like, I think that there are teams that might just take the risk and just say, screw it. We have one of the 4 best players in the league. We have an infrastructure here. Let's just go and try and win a title. Because Giannis isn't going to like not report. You know what I mean? Like he's not that kind of guy where he's not going to like not report. So I wonder if he actually is too good to have leverage. I think that changes in the summer. That's why I actually think that Milwaukee might be incentivized to do a deal before the deadline, is because, and this is why I said that I thought they should have traded him last summer, is that if you do that, you're able to open it up to the entire league, like Houston, like San Antonio, like Atlanta, like everybody is able to do this. Whereas next summer, where he only has 1 year left and he can like really swing the idea of like, you only get me for 1 playoff run and then I'm hitting free agency. I actually think then he probably has a good deal of power to dictate where he goes.
Do you think Milwaukee sends Giannis somewhere he doesn't want to go, though?
I think that they will go to get the best deal possible. I do.
Well, to the point originally, just as a basketball fan, the Paolo Giannis fit as a trade makes sense to me, just because the hardest thing to do when you're rebuilding is to find the guy who can be your number one. And I think Paolo gives Milwaukee that right away. And Orlando in this offseason, you get to keep the majority of the rest of your roster. I think they might have to. Does the money go the dollar for dollar next season, or no? Or Paolo's max is still a little bit less than Giannis's, isn't it? A
little bit less, but like would be very easy to construct a deal that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and then at that point, if I'm Orlando, I'm just like overnight the best team in the Eastern Conference by like a pretty wide margin.
Yeah. No, I don't mind this. I think this makes sense, honestly. The more I've thought about it, the more I like actually quite like it, and hadn't thought about Orlando as a trade option here. And I think it's kind of interesting and kind of smart.
I really like Anthony Black, though. And part of the reason why I was high on that idea was simply that even if it bombs out with Giannis, you still have a bright future. And I don't like it quite as much, especially with Jalen Suggs' injury history, if you're giving up Anthony Black in that deal. So I don't think I would do it in season if that's what it's going to cost.
I mean, if you waited until the summer, you could probably do Suggs and Paulo, and then take back Kuzma if you wanted to.
Yeah,
that'd be an option as well. So they have options, I guess, is the point here. Okay, I'm going to go next. The Boston Celtics infrastructure, just organizationally, is one of the most impressive in the NBA to me, if not the most impressive non-Oklahoma City division. I think that they might be number 2 for me right now. The fact that they're sitting here They're going to be 15-9 here in the next 10 seconds.
They ended up winning.
Yeah, Toronto gave like a valiant effort of a comeback, but ultimately Boston was able to go and get a road win here. They've completely like simultaneously changed their style of play. Like they're playing at the slowest pace in the league right now, which is completely crazy compared to, the pace that they had played in, I felt like 2023 and 2024, they were like a little bit faster. The last 2 years, they have been extremely slowly paced. Like they play at a snail's pace the last 2 years, comparatively league wide. Without Jason Tatum, they just have an infrastructure that works. They never turn the ball over because they play very simple basketball with like these awesome quick hitter ball screen sets that lead into open threes. They take a ton of threes. They are 4th in 3-point attempt rate in the NBA. They are 1st in turnover rate in the NBA. They absolutely crash the hell out of the offensive glass. They're 5th in offensive rebounding rate. And then defensively, like their infrastructure is just really sound and solid. Like having Derek White and then having the emergence of Jordan Walsh, who has been like a man on fire on defense. Like I don't know how much you've watched him recently. Like
he's unbelievable.
That dude looks like an all defense guy at some point, maybe. The offense is going to have to like come along a little bit so he can play 25 minutes a game in order to reach that threshold. But he is awesome on that end. Like the way that I know that like they, kicked the ever loving hell out of the Lakers a couple days ago, but like watching him chase around Austin Reeves without Luka on the court.
He did the best job on Austin I've ever seen an on-ball defender do. Like
he was so good
in that first quarter. He got Austin to like fall apart in that first quarter.
It was crazy. And then you just look at the other moves they've made from a front office perspective, right? You go out and you take a bet on Josh Minott. Well, Josh Minott is now shooting 50, 44, 77, averaging 7.5 points, 5 rebounds, and like a steal and a block like per game.
I don't like his form, but it goes in. I hate his form.
It goes in weird. It looks terrible. Nimi Keita this year has been like a valuable, like useful starting caliber NBA center. He's averaging 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 66% from the field. He's been like completely and totally useful for them. And he's been in the organization for a few years, obviously. Jordan Walsh has been in the organization for a few years. Baylor Shireman is starting to give them like really good minutes, I think, off the bench too. Hugo Gonzalez, like the effort and energy and activity that he gives them. They've done an amazing job of building up this roster off like the sidelines, kind of like just off of like the guys that were on their bench, deep bench, or just, the guys that they picked up like Josh Minott. And on top of that, you still have the Peyton Pritchard, the Derek White, and obviously the Jaylen Brown. And there's been a lot of talk about Derek White, not being able to step into that next level or whatever, like not being able to scale up in the way that was hoped for. It kind of hasn't mattered, frankly.
And he's been great the last few weeks. Yeah,
he's been amazing the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, like his true shooting percentage is 11% below league average, but like the way he scaled up has been fine for them recently because he makes quick decisions. He is able to shoot the ball and gets guarded out there from a high level. And on top of it, he's a killer defender. Like there are just so many different ways that he is incredibly valuable and helpful for them. I love this Boston Celtics team. I think that we have not talked nearly enough about them this year with their ability to, fight and scratch and claw and make things work. And a huge part of this, like we haven't even talked about Jaylen Brown yet, but Jaylen Brown leveling up as a ball handler a little bit. They're basically running the same actions that they would run for Tatum for Brown now, where like sometimes they'll throw him the ball on the block and let him make passing reads. Sometimes they'll, have him drive and get downhill. I think his gathers look better this year. I think his handle is a little bit tighter this year. I think that his leap has gone even understated league wide. I think he's been awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Jaylen Brown piece, like just in the last couple of weeks too, he started attacking the basket with like reckless abandon. He is very good at taking advantage of baked in driving reads. So like when they do run action or when they put him off the ball, when like Derek White has the ball and he catches on the wing and the dude's in nail help closing out on like his right shoulder, he just racks left and goes. He just like takes advantage of these little seams that are just built in. In his first 13 games this year, he was at 4.1 makes at the rim per game. He's up to 5.3 makes per game in his last 9 games, just really attacking the basket a lot. Obviously, the deadly short range shot making, he's 54.4% on jump shots inside of 17 feet. The main thing for me with him is he's just being very intentional with his matchup attacking, getting the right type of matchup that he likes, attacking it, scoring on it one-on-one, or making the kick-out reads when they're available. He's actually been really good passing out of ISO this year. That was something that, over the years he could get a little bit frustrating with. I thought his game against the Knicks in particular was one of his best, like start to finish, floor managing, kind of like I'm controlling this offense for the
completely agree with you.
Against the Knicks. I thought he was so incredibly good at just attacking Brunson over and over and over again. And then as soon as they reacted, just making the kick out reads out of it. Like we were watching Jaylen Brown get blitzed 30 feet from the basket. That we never saw that in years past. And that's just the level that he's reached as a one-on-one player. The margin piece with the offensive rebounding to me has been one of the more fascinating like pieces of like basketball strategy that I've seen in the league this year. So they're a nightmarishly bad defensive rebounding team for obvious reasons. They don't have a starting caliber power forward on the roster, and their center is Nimi Keita, and their center rotation falls off a cliff after that. So in other words, the 4 and 5 spot are just a bunch of dudes, for lack of a better word, and yet they are winning the offensive rebounding like a second chance points battle by a half a point every game. And what I find really fascinating about this is like when they give up an offensive rebound to a big, they are scrapping. And there's 3 dudes around him swatting down at the basketball. And so many of the offensive rebounds for the other team end in like a missed putback or a turnover, or the dude has no choice but to kick it out and run offense again, where they have another opportunity to get a stop. Whereas so many of Boston's offensive rebounds are putbacks because they have their dudes corner crashing so relentlessly that many times they're just running right around their dude and getting like a clean runway for an easy little putback. And especially in their centerless looks where the runways around the basket get even more open because they just don't have any bodies to contend with down there. But like, again, like before the Lakers game, I know they had a better defensive rebounding game in that one, but before the Lakers game, they were dead last, 30th in defensive rebound percentage in winning the second chance points battle every night because they scrap at least on the defensive glass. And they abuse teams with these little easy little putbacks for guys like Jordan Walsh, for guys like Hugo Gonzalez and Josh Minott crashing out of the corners. Their guards are all good at crashing too. They actually get 3.2 putbacks per game and they shoot 64% on them. That's an insanely high percentage because there are 9 teams in the NBA that get more putbacks, but all of them except for Brooklyn and Orlando shoot substantially lower percentages on them. They just get these little easy little putbacks so many times per game. And, the defense stuff, it's tricky because you look at their big picture numbers, they're 18th in defensive rating, which doesn't seem good, but it's kind of complicated because when Keita's on the floor, they're very good defensively. And then they just have these centerless looks, which they've been going to a lot more over the last couple of weeks. And in those centerless looks, they have a 123 defensive rating, but they also have a 142 offensive rating. So they're like just bludgeoning teams with their centerless looks because they're so fast and they get so many offensive rebounds in those looks. And I think ultimately one of the things that was a clear strength for the team coming into the season is even without Tatum, Derek, Jaylen, and Peyton, it's a pretty damn good trio of dudes who can run offense. And that was like the one thing that we all knew would probably be fine. It would just be, could they do everything else fine? And shout out to the Celtics organizationally. They've been pretty good everywhere else. But I just think I was watching them over the last couple of weeks. And I watched most of the first half against Toronto today. They just look so comfortable with what they want to do on offense. it's a pretty steady diet of, like you said, like these quick little transition screens for Derek White coming off. They run a lot of stack and get a lot of really good stuff out of that. Yeah. Jaylen Brown, when he does his one-on-ones, it's so intentional with the way they space the floor and with who he's attacking. I like he's got all these little things figured out. Like, he's not getting himself into as many congested areas by like choosing where to turn his back to the basket and try to bully a guy, or like where to try to drive into. There's just like another layer of intentionality to the way he's been attacking. I just find them to be really fun to watch. I don't think they can do anything without a little bit more front court talent. And I think they probably, if Jason Tatum is going to come back this year, I would imagine they make some sort of deal for a center so they can have a little bit more positional flexibility down the line. But like, if Tatum comes back, are we sure this isn't the best team in the Eastern Conference? like they're good, Sam. I think they're really good.
The answer is no. We're not sure that they aren't the best team in the Eastern Conference if Jason Tatum is there. Like, I'm not certain. I agree with you. They need like another center look. Even if it's just like a totally capable backup, like I'm fine with Keita starting. They have a 108.2 defensive rating when Keita is on the court and a 121 offensive rating when Keita is on the court. So they're beating teams by 13 points per 100 possessions with Keita. It's crazy. Yeah, like they just need like another body. They need like another big body who can guard in space and like not get totally crushed in ball screens. Like the Garza minutes have not been very good. They need one more big body, I think. But with Tatum, dude, I don't know. Like they then become really hard for a team like the Knicks to deal with. Like obviously they just beat the Knicks, so like they're hard to deal with for the Knicks anyway, because what they're doing is they're basically playing Keita on Josh Hart and then having, Jordan Walsh on Brunson, and then Jaylen Brown guard Karl Anthony Towns. So anytime they go to the Brunson Towns ball screen, they just switch it. Mm-hmm. And then it's totally fine. It's the same exact matchup.
Did you
it's
see
probably
Cat?
A mismatch for Cat.
Cat's crunch time defense again in that game.
It's tough.
He chased Jordan Walsh off of the corner when he had 3 corner threes made all season at that point in time. He like lunged at, like Jaylen Brown was falling over on a floater, and he like lunged at him and gave up an offensive rebound when he should have just stayed back. To start the game, I couldn't even tell what pick and roll coverage he was in, because at one he was in like a catch hedge, the other he was like up at the level. The first one he's in the super deep drop. Like that game was such a classic example of everything why I don't believe in the Knicks on display.
They ran like they ran a stack in that game where Cat, Stack or Spain for people who aren't like super aware, where like Cat like basically basically made like an executive decision. I'm just not going to guard this one, and like just let Keita roll to the rim. I was like, what are we doing? And like didn't even go and like play at the level or play like in drop or anything. He just like stayed like in the middle, and I was like, what happened here?
Oh my god,
how did that go, Cat? Yeah, look, the Knicks are 15-7, 16-7, something like that. I can't remember if they're 15-7 or 16-7 after today's win against Orlando. But like, it's so weird to me that I'm like partially not super comfortable talking about the Knicks because they've lost 3 of the last 5 games that I've watched. So I'm just like, I know that I haven't seen them play at their best. And I know that my sample of them is not representative of what they've done throughout the course of the year. So like, I think that this week, one of my projects is going to be that I just need to like sit down and watch the good games that the Knicks have played and like understand what's going on. So like, it's just funny how that works sometimes, like doing the jobs that we do, where like, that a team is better than this, but you keep catching them at a time where for whatever reason, like it's just not going as well as what the record indicates. So like, I'm a little bit like hesitant to talk about the Knicks and just be like, oh yeah, I don't believe in them. Like, I don't love the fact that they're switching on defense as often as they are. Like I get frustrated with the Cat experience. Like my experiences with the Knicks currently, it feels like, are not representative of what the Knicks are. So I will decline a Knicks conversation at this point from anybody that, I'm not saying you're presenting one. I'm just saying like from anybody that like asks me, I'm just like, I feel like I can't talk about them right now because the 5 games I've seen recently are it's the Miami game that they lost by 2, the Orlando game where like Mitch got destroyed in space, and then the Boston game where they, obviously just like were not super good late defensively, and then the second quarter was like a total blitz from like a half bench unit from Boston. And look, like I watched the Toronto game where they were really good. I watched the Milwaukee game where they beat Milwaukee. Like I've seen them play well too, but it's just funny how that works sometimes in our jobs.
Yeah, they're to me like the opposite of Minnesota. I could see them be really good a half dozen times and I'd still have the same question marks. Again, I don't want to get into a Knicks conversation because we got other stuff to get into, but like I just have such a hard time taking a team seriously when you have a defender in Cat who is quite literally the most mistake-prone, dead serious basketball player I've ever seen on the defensive end.
Yeah, it's very strange watching them play. Okay, you're up with number 3.
All right, I'll move through this quickly because I know we're running low on time. Is there some way that the Spurs can combine how good they've been on offense with De'Aaron Fox with how good they were on defense with Wemby? Essentially, just to rip through this real quick, De'Aaron Fox has been unbelievable since he had that stinker against Steph Curry in the Warriors game. Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was his first game back. So to his credit,
first or second,
yeah, but he hadn't been back very long. He's shooting the basketball really well, which I think is very encouraging. He is sneaky one of the better like cross court passers as a driving guard that I've seen, which I think is an underrated like wheel greaser for their offense. He's very good at reading the low man and skipping to the opposite corner, which gets the defense in rotation and can start some of their positive sequences. We still have just an enormously small sample size of him and Wemby together as pick and roll partners, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. But before Fox joined the team this season after his injury, it was a lot of like Wemby elbow ISOs and post-ups where he wasn't managing double teams super well. So I think having De'Aaron Fox as like a more reliable, like let's put the ball in his hands and put Wemby in action with him and we'll get good stuff out of it. I think that'll help them be more reliable. Devin Vassell's like legit, accurate, hyper aggressive above the break 3-point shooting is huge for their spacing. And all of a sudden with him and Fox, with how well Fox is shooting the ball, and having Shane Paney and Harrison Barnes who can also shoot, I'm less worried about their shooting than I was going into the season. I love how athletic and scrappy they are. Like Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan bring like a bully ball to the rim like element to their offense that works. All of their guards are good rebounders who scrap. Dylan Harper, since he came back, has been getting to the basket really well. I've really liked the stuff I've seen from him. They're good in transition. And then again, they've been bad on defense since Wemby left, but Wemby is the most game-breaking defensive force in the league. So all I can think is like, is there a version of this where they combine what we saw defensively from them to start the year with De'Aaron Fox and just that extra little bit of juice down the rotation offensively can turn them into like a legit, let's not call them OKC, but let's call them like in the same tier as like that Lakers, Minnesota, as like a team like if they beat Denver or Houston, you wouldn't be surprised.
I think they're going to be awesome, Jason. So like contextually, just to give numbers here. So since Wemby got hurt, or no, let's go chronologically. So when Wemby got hurt, first 12 games of the year, they were 8-4. 116.9 offensive rating, 111 defensive rating. 111 defensive rating was 6th in the league. Offensive rating was 10th in the league. They had a 5.4 net rating, obviously really good. So since November 15th, they have a defensive rating of 116.8, so 20th in the league, and an offensive rating of 118.8, so 6th in the league. So like Jason said, exactly, the numbers back up entirely what he's saying. In terms of the offense has been incredible. The defense has kind of fallen off of a cliff a little bit since Wemby is out. Makes total sense. It's Victor Wembanyama, right? Given that the offense was still pretty good with Wemby and like essentially without Fox, not totally. They overlapped for I think 2 games maybe, but I think they're just going to be awesome. Is kind of where I'm at because I am a huge fan of what I think the Wemby Fox ball screen game should bring. Like, in theory, you have this guy who is maybe the biggest threat as a 5 in the NBA on a pick and pop, between his ability to drive, his ability to knock down shots from the perimeter, everything. And you have one of the 3 or 4 best downhill fast guards going to the rim in the NBA. So if you surround that duo with spacing, it should be theoretically very difficult to guard, especially with the way that De'Aaron is currently playing and shooting, where he's at like 49, 38, 84, and is completely, dominating as a shooter as well right now, which we'll see if that holds. He goes through hot runs throughout the course of his career, right? But like, I don't know, man. When I've seen what they've looked like with Fox, and they're winning Fox's possessions by like +3 right now. But when I see what they look like with De'Aaron, where they have a 121 offensive rating when he's on the court, and the number of minutes that overlaps with Wemby is only like, I think, a quarter of his minutes played so far this year. I just kind of think that's going to be awesome. And I think that this team is going to end up in the top 4 of the West, is where I'm at.
I just love the dynamic where you're going to have to guard their pick and rolls 3-on-2. You're just going to have to.
Yes.
And he's a pick and roll guard who's very good at the skip pass, which I just think is a very good natural fit. Now, the big question mark is he wasn't very good in the very small sample size of pick and rolls that we saw, when we get like 5 games last year, 2 games this year. It's very small. But like, he wasn't very good at like unlocking Wemby as a roller in their actions.
Yeah.
But I don't want to really evaluate that until they get a lot more reps. I just think there's a version of this where the two of them become the type of reliable offensive action that you would need in order to make their defense upset capable against some of these other teams. And I just like, I will say this too, like I have been very right about some things this season, and I've been very wrong about some things this season. I was wrong about this Spurs roster. I didn't think they were talented enough top to bottom to really compete in the West. And I was wrong because Keldon Johnson, when he looked kind of like a odd man out over the last couple of years, suddenly looks really important to them again. And Devin Vassell has taken that leap to just that extra level of efficiency as a jump shooter that wasn't there last year. The just overall scrappiness and physicality on the perimeter that they have that I underrated. Luke Cornett has been awesome for them too. Like, they just they have a lot more really good basketball players than I gave them credit for. And it was one of the big things I was wrong about this offseason. And I'm with you. I'm looking at them as firmly in that like Minnesota Lakers group, like not quite as imposing as that Houston Denver group as like a two-way set of talent. But I think they're like a legitimate upset shot against anybody in the West.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, that like they have a number of picks that they can utilize too if they want to go get somebody. They have a ton of expiring salary between Barnes and you could use the Keldon deal. I think that deal is like probably pretty close to net neutral now, given the way that he's played this year. Like, you have so many ways to go out and get guys if you want to go and like make a serious impact trade too.
Mm-hmm.
I think this team's going to be really good. I think that, like, just running through real quick in a playoff series, would you take them or the Lakers at full strength?
That one's tough. I have them in the same tier. I'd lean Lakers just because of Luka, probably.
I think that I would.
It's close though. I think the Lakers are probably also going to make a trade, and LeBron isn't close to what he's going to be in about a month.
I think that's also true. Like, the LeBron defense has been like a catastrophe so far, and you just hope that it improves and that he gets better. I would imagine it will. He's coming off.
I'm not worried about
injury.
him.
Like,
he's like the last thing I worry about with this team. I know it sounds weird, but like, he's just going to find a way to be good for them eventually. He played his entire training camp last year and still was bad for a month. Like, I think this is going to be one of those guys where late January, it's like, oh yeah, we fell for it again.
I do think that what has happened in the West for me, though, barring like a Warriors run at some point, which I think could happen, is I do think that the top 6 have like kind of consolidated a little bit, where it's in some order: obviously Oklahoma City is going to be number one, but like in some order, Denver, Minnesota, the Lakers, the Rockets, and the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's going to be your six that make the playoffs straight, and then everyone else is going to have to play in the play-in.
Yep. And by the way, the possibility, because there are certain teams that I think can't beat OKC, Minnesota in particular. I obviously every team should be terrified of them, but there are certain teams that like literally can't beat them. And if Denver can somehow slot to 4, and then there's always that chance, because there are some teams that match up really well with Denver, but that don't match up well with OKC, Minnesota chief among them. And so like if Minnesota ends up, or if Denver ends up falling to 4, and we get that epic Denver OKC matchup in the second round, we could very easily see somebody slip through that we didn't think was going to.
Yeah. Okay. My last one here. Pat Spencer is indeed that MF. Like that's just the reality of what we've learned this week. It is to me like the coolest story. Like this guy was playing college lacrosse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like one of the great college lacrosse players. I don't know if he's the best college lacrosse player. I tweeted that he was, because it's, just a better story. Why let the facts get in the way of a good narrative on some level, right? But like one of the great college lacrosse players of the last, 3 decades or something. He literally set the all-time assist record in college lacrosse, playing for Loyola. He was the number 1 overall pick in the PLL draft, the Pro Lacrosse League. And he just decides, no, I want to go play basketball, because he played basketball in high school. And obviously his brother was a high-level basketball player, hence why he's in the NBA. Do you understand how crazy that is? That this dude didn't play college basketball until he was 23 years old. Averaged like 10-4. Yeah, averaged like 10-4-4 at Northwestern. Was like good, right? Has to work his way through like Germany, the Go-Go, has to go to the Santa Cruz Warriors to work his way up. And this dude is so confident. I mean, you see him like screaming, "I'm that MFer" to the Philadelphia 76ers crowd. You see him literally waving goodbye to all of the Cleveland fans from the foul line yesterday. And it's after he drops like, it's 17-5 in what yesterday? No, I'm sorry. He had 19-4-7 yesterday against Cleveland. Like absolutely won them the game. They scored 99 points in that game. He entirely kept them in the Philly game at 16-4-4. He kind of like kept them in the Oklahoma City game too last week, where like, look, that ended up being a double-digit loss, but like 17-3-6. Again, like this is a guy I talked about a lot on the show last year, is like a guy where I was just like, yes, this is a guy that I'm betting on, like give him a guaranteed contract. Also, I will say, and this is something where like you can come in and like talk about this a little bit, like the process of getting better doesn't stop once you hit the NBA, obviously. Not to say that you were an NBA player, but like you got drastically better at basketball from the time that you were 23, from the time that you've turned 30, right? Like these guys get better. Like the people think about the NBA as the 500 best players in the league. To tie it back to something I talked about earlier, like there are probably 70 rookies in the league, something like that, 75 rookies in the league. I would venture that maybe 15 of those players, maybe 10 to 15 of those players are among the 500 best players in the world, right? And then among second year players, there are, some number of second year players, probably 70 second year players, something like that, 65 maybe. Probably only 30 of those guys are among the best players in the world. The NBA isn't quite the meritocracy, like in the way that people think, right? In regard to like it being the 500 best, because it's worth developing guys and getting their, getting them under contract and giving them a chance to develop and get better. Pat Spencer is like kind of a perfect example of this, where it took him 6 years to get to the point where he's an NBA player. Maybe 5, because I thought he was last year too, but like it took him that long to get better. There are so many guys overseas that if they found the right spot, they could be doing something similar to what Pat Spencer is doing.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, like I think Pat Spencer like is probably one of the 500 best players in the world. Like I think he actually has hit that point, but it took him until he was 29 to do that. And I think he's like kind of a prime example of let's go bet on these guys that are freaking awesome at basketball and see where it goes, right? Even if they're 29. Like I liked the Suns signing Nigel Hayes Davis earlier this year because I thought that that was an interesting idea, and he was great in EuroLeague. Like he's fantastic. It hasn't worked out quite the way that I thought it might. I thought he was going to be pretty good this year, but maybe it's just not the right scheme for him. Like I bet you there's a scheme in the NBA where Nigel Hayes can play at a really high level in the NBA, just like there was for Pat Spencer. And Pat figuring it out is probably my favorite story in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I want to. Everything you laid out about Pat is perfect. I want to change directions just a tiny bit with this because I think the way he's been successful with Golden State is kind of important and informative about their team a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest problems for Golden State is like if their system can generate a decent look for one of their guys, they have guys that are capable of making shots within their system or finishing at the rim on a cut in their system or things along those lines. But like Pat brings this like really nice mix of he can in the system make the reads and the shots, but he also can like run ball screens. And he's been a very good ball screen player this year because he can hit a pull-up three. He's a legit 3-level scoring threat. Like he can hit a pull-up three, he can hit a little shot in the mid-range, he can draw a foul in the mid-range, he can get all the way to the basket and finish. We've seen in the last week he's been going to that like kind of wide out scoop shot layup that he can make at a decent clip, and then he can make the passing reads out of it. And I think that specific dynamic, the inability to find guys that can both, okay, we're in our system and we're making reads and finishing plays versus like, hey, this broke down, come set a ball screen for me and I can create a shot for us. I think him bringing that to the table has been a really fascinating kind of like bit of information about Golden State. Because once again this year, the Golden State offense with Steph on the floor has like a 119.5 offensive rating. So they've been amazing offensively again with Steph, and then just awful as soon as he leaves the floor. And it doesn't matter if Jimmy Butler's out there. And one of the things that I've consistently been arguing is that like, why didn't they trade Kuminga for Malik Monk? Like, I know that Malik Monk's not the perfect basketball player, but like, this team needs a dude who can like legitimately generate quality shots in a ball screen as like a mix up to their offense.
Well,
I'm
Jason,
like desperate for them to find that guy. And I think Pat succeeding is evidence of that.
Yeah, it's paint touches. They need somebody who can collapse a defense and then can kick out.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes this offense work. Like sometimes it's via Draymond Green on the block running a split action and he hits a cutter, which forces the team to collapse a little bit further, which opens up like the 3-pointer potentially coming off of the split, right? Like it's, posting Jimmy Butler in the way that they do on an empty side and forcing a double that way. It's just that a lot of the time without Steph on the court, their offense looks so stagnant. And to your point, that's exactly what Spencer is doing. He's bringing them that spontaneity that you're kind of talking about on offense that they really lack. I think they were hoping coming into the year for at least half the year that it would be Kuminga that could do this and that he could like get paint touches and just drive downhill and, get a stampede cut and just drive. And then maybe, God forbid, make a pass, but he's been a little bit better at that this year, at least. With Pat, it's like, oh no, we can just run a ball screen and Pat can get to the rim and he can play at pace and can find an open player, or he can have that goofy ass wide scoop shot, or he can, end up, getting fouled because he's so awkward at getting to shots in the mid range, right? Like, it's not like he's, drawing a crazy number of fouls or anything, but like he does have that ability to play super slow and like find his little.
Yeah, if the guy's draped on his back, he can make that read and be like, I just need to rise up here and I'll get that foul. Yeah.
Right. It felt like particularly in the Philly game, like that was something that he went to pretty like somewhat regularly. It's been huge for them. And I agree with you. Like if I'm them, like I'm looking to move Kuminga for a paint touch guy at the end of the day, unless I feel like by, January 15th, they still have another month and a half to figure this out. unless I feel like Pat Spencer is just that guy where I can.
Yeah, and maybe it's
and
Pat.
honestly,
I'm not trying to undercut Pat here. Like, I'm just saying,
I think it might be Pat, Jason.
Pat's success to be informative to what they're missing.
Totally. I completely agree with you on this. I think you're 100% right. And I'm so fascinated to see what they do with the Kuminga asset now because of it. Are they able to go out and get that guy who makes sense? Like maybe it's somebody like CJ McCollum or something like that who can like do a little bit of both, like can knock down shots from the perimeter and can also occasionally get paint touches, right? Like I'm not sitting here saying that like we have all the answers here, but I do think Pat Spencer is an answer. I will say this though too. One of the funniest things that I have seen is Sam Esfandiari tweeted, "Pat Spencer is Linsanity for sales bros." One of my buddies that works in the NBA texted me this, and I was like, I'm sales bros." Like, I love this. This is great. The mustache, the vibe. I mean, that family is hilarious. Like, I don't know if Pat has social media, but like I know Cam has like literally no social media whatsoever. Like lives in a basketball bubble. Like when he was at UConn, like Cam would call Pat after like scrimmages at UConn where UConn had like tape, and Cam would like walk into the coach's office afterward and immediately demand the tape so that he could like in the summer break down like the nuances of how he gets through ball screens on defense with Pat, who was like playing in the G League and like had this experience. Like they're just a psychotic, like basketball junkie family.
That's awesome.
In the best way humanly possible. And I love the fact that both of them are having success. Like shout out to Cam too. I mean, Cam has been even better than Pat recently. And, you know, Cam's also 25, Pat's 29, if memory serves. You know, you look at Cam Spencer's last, what is it, like 7 games or so, he's just been like a total savage. Like he's got 17, 18, 11, 10, 16, 21, 17. He's averaging 15.7 points, 5 assists, shooting 62, 100 over his last 7 games. Look, here's the deal. We have one policy on the Game Theory podcast: bet on competitors. Like bet on these psycho competitors and they'll figure it out. And I think just no better example than the Spencer family.
Dylan Brooks, I've been kind of keyed in on this with him too. I think one of the most important elements of scoring the basketball is like audacity. You gotta have just an insane belief in yourself. And like you like and that ultimately, like there were years where Dylan was taking these same shots and missing all of them, and he just kept doing it. And now it's like they're going in, and he's one of the best two-way players in the league now. But it's like it just, there is a layer of confidence and belief in yourself that it, like, to me, the point you're making about competitiveness, I think it's that competitiveness mixed with confidence. It's just such a powerful combination.
Completely agree. Jason, tell the people about Hoops Tonight. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, so on YouTube, Hoops Tonight, wherever you get your podcasts, Hoops Tonight. I'm most active on Twitter at _JasonLT. But yeah, we do game breakdowns 5 days a week. Usually in the mornings this time of year, but as soon as we get out of Super Bowl, we start doing nights again. And we're going to be covering nights for the in-season tournament. I'm secretly hoping that the Lakers can beat San Antonio because I need to see them not soil themselves against OKC. That's all I need. Just don't soil yourself. And then I'll start to believe a little bit again. But anyway, Sam, this was so much fun, dude. I always have loved talking hoops with you. It reminds me of when we talk on the phone. It's like this too. That's the funny thing. There's no difference between our pod conversations and our phone conversations. They're just like this. But as I told you before recording, we're going to have you on our show in about a month to talk contenders, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it as well. This will not be the last time Jason appears on this channel, before the end of the season. We love having Jason on. He's the best. Shout out Mizzen Main, sponsors today's show. Shout out to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. Hit the subscribe button there. Also hit the subscribe button. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. On a draft breakdowns. I did a Cam Boozer breakdown for today against Michigan State. We did a bunch of them last week and in the week prior. We are starting to build up a bit of a catalog over there. If you need any draft breakdowns. I feel like we've got a couple on Caleb Wilson. We got a couple on Boozer. We got a couple on certainly AJ DeBanza at this point. I think we have like 5 on DeBanza because I have some U19 stuff too. Hannes Steinbach is another one that we did late last week. So go hit the subscribe button, game3samv.substack.com. You are going to get everything you need over there from an NBA draft perspective. And we will do some young NBA players as well over there. Not sure who is on the docket for this week. Could be Dylan Harper because I want to watch a little bit more of Dylan this week because he's been really fun recently. But that's where we're at. We appreciate everyone coming through. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to everybody who has come and hung out today. This has been the Game 3 podcast. Remember, rate, review, subscribe. I think we're at 86,000 on YouTube. We appreciate all of you immensely for coming to hang out. We will be back later this week, tomorrow, actually, with Adam Finkelstein. So until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.